Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Welcome to Witchy Work Wishes. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am your host, Charlene, and we are rolling up our sleeves today and talking about goals on this week's episode. And this year, I am specifically pulling the 5 main steps we need to take to create them. And not just any 5 steps, but 5 steps to crush making our 2024 goals. But first, some things I have recently done to help with my own personal practice. This past weekend was a big reflection weekend for me, as I'm sure it was for many of you. That is partly how I assess what needs to be done in the upcoming year. But even so, it was the end of the year and my time to wind down. It's like the ultimate dark moon for me, even though we were in a waning giva stage. Even though I had a pretty good idea on how my drafted 2024 goals would look, right? We know. If you're honest with yourself, you have a good idea of some biggies that need to get on that first draft right away. But I had not taken the time yet to, sit down and reflect, to understand and be resolved with, or look forward yet. So I went to my Crow Tarot deck for some guidance, and really it's been a while since I've used my deck. I know I didn't at all during the holidays, so it was nice. It was nice and calming for me to come back to this deck that I love so much to help me look at the past, the present, and the future. Now for the past, I drew a major card. I actually drew the Justice card, which is all about fairness, it's about balance, and the law. Now, the element for the Justice card is air, and the card in my deck says, "The crow flies upward with wings open. He has nothing to conceal. His honesty has earned him the respect of his peers, as they know he will take a balanced and fair approach with every situation." This crow of justice brings the message to take the time to see a problem or difficult challenge from all sides before making any decisions. It is also a time to consider all consequences. For the present, I drew the 6 of Cups, which says, "The crow returns to the place of his youth in search of finding his inner fledgling. He stands in a field of cups, filling his heart with healing memories of a time that was less complicated. If you have been feeling overburdened with day-to-day responsibilities, the 6 of Cups brings the message to take a break and remember a moment in time when you felt free just to enjoy life. Whether it is a trip to your hometown or maybe a favorite vacation spot, it's time to recharge your spirit." Now for the future, I drew another major card. I drew the Lovers, which is all about love and business. It's about partnerships, choices, and relationships. Now, this card is also an air element card, and it says, "On the surface, this card represents love in unity. However, it goes deeper, as it also describes karmic passion and soul relationships that span lifetimes. The crows have traveled together through space and time. Drinking from the same heart binds them as their veins are filled with the same life force, joining their spirit for eternity together. Each decision is made as the outcome will forever affect both of them. From the person you love to the place you settle down, this card asks that you examine your belief system and use your inner compass when deciding to join forces. The Lovers bring the message that some benefits and consequences will eventually reveal themselves for better or worse." That was an interesting pull, and I think I just need to let it marinate a little bit. The present card, I guess, made the most sense to me, since I know I'm going to be starting a big shadow work journey, and I am really sure I'll need some comfort along the way. I guess, for that matter, the past Justice card makes sense too. I think overall I'm pretty fair and equal in my approach to things. For the lover's card and my future? Me? I have no idea. I really don't. But that's the fun part, right? We'll see what happens. All right, I also went to my Animal Oracle deck for a single card pull. I did it right before sitting down, after I had my candles going and the fire in the fireplace, getting myself all comfy and starting to work on my goal-making worksheet. So I wanted an animal presence with me, and you are going to laugh. I literally cannot make this stuff up. If you've been following me all along and have heard over the past couple of years, the cards that I pull now and then, you're going to get a good giggle out of this one. And if that damn chameleon came to your mind, you were right. Once again, I drew the chameleon spirit. I honestly need to go back and see how many times this card has come up. More than 5, right? It's silly. But if I think about it, I know why. I'm going to read the wording for this card first, just in case you don't have it memorized already because I've read it so many times. But it says, Chameleon Spirit shares her gift with you today to prepare you for the changes that will greatly benefit you. Outer conditions are changing, and you're required to come into harmony with them so you can co-create your greatest dream. Feeling sensitive? Good, because that will come in handy, enabling you to determine how best to adapt to your environment and the people in it, while at the same time maintaining your integrity and inner equilibrium. Even if you feel like you are in uncharted territory, Chameleon Spirit has complete faith in your ability to fit in and learn the lay of the land, adapting as necessary. This is a fortunate time to act as if and do as others do, until the new way feels familiar and completely natural. Life is offering you a great lesson now. Adapting isn't about losing yourself. It's about learning how to dance with others. Oh, chameleon. I feel like this chameleon is an old friend now. And she comes to me when a new breakthrough is about to happen. Instead of being frustrated to see her again, I am honestly thankful. I know the area of shadow work that I'm launching right now is completely unfamiliar. The act of slowing down and meditating feels strange to me and puts me out of balance. Yet it is something that I must do to find my own inner peace and grow. So as strange as it feels, I need to act as if. I need to keep doing it until my body adapts and my inner equilibrium settles. I know changes are coming. I want these changes and I'm willing to work for them. So pulling the chameleon spirit just confirms it. And it is with her in mind that I started to draft my own goals for 2024. All right, with that said, you guys ready? Should we jump into it? Let's start drafting and crushing our own lists in making goals. All right, well, I toyed with this episode just a little bit because I had such a great one back at the end of 22 that really listed out exactly, step by step, what I personally do when making my own annual goals. So here we are again, a year later. But honestly, the data does not change. It's still how I tackle, writing things out, how I draft them, and then how I take them, into like my final version of my goals that I post so I can start working on them. Now, I've been doing it this way for over 30 years, and I am doing it again this way for my goals now. So I toyed with, perusing through those notes again and just kind of repeating. But to work with today's episode, that just didn't seem very exciting. And what does motivate me and get me buzzed up for this year's goals is really focusing on the top 5 things that I need to do to create them. So I looked over what my steps are. I streamlined them just a bit so they fit perfectly into a top 5 crush list for you. Now I'm going to start and end with the same little phrase that I started last year's episode with, because I don't want you to take it lightly. I embrace it, and I'm really hoping you do too. And it's the famous saying that goes, a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. and a plan backed by action becomes reality. I promise if you stay consistent with these 3 things, the world is yours. Goal or no goal, if this is how you tackle stuff, you are going to succeed. But for today, with our work dreams and our witchy work wishes, we are going to take this exact approach and keep it as our theme as we take control of our goals. We are going to take a dream, we're going to write it down, we're going to plan what steps need to be taken to move forward, and then we are going to act on those steps and achieve our goals. And stay tuned till the end because I have my first ever giveaway. All you need to do is reach out. All right, let's talk about the 5 steps first, what they are, and how they will help us crush our 2024 goals before we get into making them. All right, step number 1, create. Step number 2, define. Step number 3, break down. Step number 4, add timelines. And step number 5, act. If you can stay consistent with these 5 steps, you got it. All of it. Whether it's one singular goal or 15 goals, you got it. All right, step number 1, create. This is the fun step, right? It's expressive. It's creative. It's thinking about our dreams and choosing which ones we're going to focus on this year. Now, I personally create a space for me that is really personal and cozy. This is a reflective time and a brainstorming time, so I like to make my space nice and cozy to do this. I grab my papers, my pens, fuzzy blankets, get my candles going, start a fire in the fireplace, all the good stuff. I usually put on some classical music, and I curl up and I let my thoughts flow. It's a free-for-all. Now again, we know probably what needs to be on the list, right? If we're honest with ourselves. But I let my brain just go. I let my thoughts flow freely. I drift back to my dreams and I let my mind just swim through all of them. Then I start to write things down, no matter how silly they are. Sometimes an outline is drafted right then and there, and I will go back and look at it each day for a little bit, maybe like a weekish. Make little tweaks and changes as needed until I know I have my finished results. Sometimes it takes longer to do it. You're going to know. You're going to know when you have your finished results. Let this be as organic and natural as possible. Now, I know when my goals have been worked on enough to be set for the year, and you honestly will too. They will feel right, like down to your core, right. If they don't, something is off. Can they scare you a little bit? Yes. The biggies will because they demand you moving outside of your comfort zone. Should they motivate you and inspire you? Yes, they should. So if you are not feeling that type of resolution and energy, look at your list again. Just make sure your goals are aligned with the greatest version of you, that you are working towards. Now, after I have all of my thoughts written down, random as they are, I come up with a theme. This sounds a little silly, I'm sure, but for me it works. This is not necessarily something you need to do too, but it honestly really does help me. And it's this theme that defines my word for the year, and it is this word that will start the actual goal steps being written out underneath them. This step also kind of helps me not compartmentalize, I think that's coming, but if I find that there are so many different things that I need to personally work on, and I have all of these different goals, not all of them need to happen in the next 12 months. And maybe that bigger picture of, your 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, this is not everything's going to be able to be accomplished in 12 months. If this is what you're using this, podcast for, your annual goal making list. So when I come up with a theme, it really does help me focus on what the next 12 months are going to look like. The past year, 2023, was definitely more physical stuff that needed to happen in my life. And I know for 2024, it's going to be much more emotional and spiritual. But that's first stuff last year, 2023, had to happen. Those things needed to be accomplished so I could move forward to another bubble, another big picture, another, theme word for me for this year. So again, if that's not you, I totally understand, but it kind of helps me look at some stuff and separate them, saying, hey, this is what I need to focus on right now. And next year, maybe I can come back and look at these other things. So the theme is kind of my why. And defining my goals from that why has really been helpful to me. So our second step is to define. Now, finding and defining your why is so very important to the success of your goals. What is motivating you to have this goal? What will inspire you to keep taking the actions needed to obtain it? Now, without getting those defined, it's tough. You're going to end up with a big list of, that wishful thinking type goals. Those, oh gosh, wouldn't it be nice if, right? And you've heard people say, oh, someday I might. And they're all dreams. It just stay that. They're just dreams. Now, in drafting out your goals, you're going to want to pull from what motivates you and what inspires you. And really, honestly, those are two pretty important words, and they really do mean different things. You're going to want to create goals that are in alignment with the greatest version of you that you are currently working on, working towards right now. So this foundation, this is going to give you the power and the fuel to keep moving forward, since it won't be in conflict with the core you. Doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, but it's not going to be in conflict with what you are trying to achieve. So what motivates you? This is going to be your reason for doing it, right? What inspires you? Well, this is going to be what creates your action, your desire to act on the motivation. Right. Now, when you're brainstorming, back with your fuzzy blankets and you're all curled up on the couch, you're going to want to have a pretty good idea of both of these. And then turn that information into your theme word or phrase for the year. And then organize and define your goals into sections. That gets us right into step number 3. Break down and compartmentalize. So I know I feel like I just said the last step was super important, but this next step is also super important. We're basically taking some big ideas, right? Some big dreams and wishes and breaking them down into organized categories and compartmentalizing them. Now, this makes our big wishes less big and overwhelming by working with them in sections that make sense. So start grouping them into piles on your paper. If you let your mind flow on step 1, you may have a bunch of things written down randomly on your page, like all over the place. So look at each one and see if there's a pattern. See if you have a singular goal maybe written out in 3 different ways, right? See if there are some goals that are closely tied to each other. There's a wheel of life that many people use when creating goal type categories. And this wheel has 6 sections. First one is spiritual. These are going to be your beliefs and your personal development. Next one is physical. This is, of course, taking care of your physical body. Third is intellectual or maybe personal development. This is going to be your learning, your knowledge, and your mind. Fourth is family relationships. This is, of course, for friends, your family, romance and love. Fifth is social interest and fun. This, of course, is going to be like your hobbies and, things you enjoy doing. And then last and sixth is career and finances. This is an area for your job, your education, your savings, and your financial security. So typically, if you're looking at all those things you wrote down on that piece of paper, they probably can fit into one of those 6 sections. And again, you might have duplicates. You think of one thing, but you wrote it down in 4 different ways. So you can start kind of whittling it down and organizing it. Now, when I'm ready to start this step, this number 3, breakdown and compartmentalize step, I get my word or phrase that I think is going to be my theme for the year. And I put it right smack dab in the center of the paper. I draw a big bubble around it, almost like a cloud. And then evenly around the bubble, or as even as you can get, free drawing, I'll usually do like 6 little lines, and each of those lines are going to be one of those 6 categories I just talked about. I've had many years where I have had nothing in a compartment. So last year, again, I mentioned it was a big physical year for me, and that's really where a lot of stuff focused. The year before that was a really big career and finance year. So it doesn't mean you have to have all 6. It just kind of helps you get more organized if you can list them out that way. I go back and I look over all of my random thoughts. I organize them into one of those 6 buckets. This is the compartmentalizing stage that really does help break things down and define the goals. And then I look at everything. I start playing around with what is really important to me and what contributes to the word and theme I'm going for. I weed out the silly stuff, some of the fluff, certainly weed out all the duplicates, and I get the categories tightened up to what motivates me and what inspires me. What is going to help bring me to my greatest and highest level? From there, I usually rewrite the draft so it looks a little, bit more tidy. And again, I start with my word for the year inside my bubble, draw 6 lines around it with each of the categories listed, and then below the category, I have my goal or my goals within it. So my approach then shifts, and I go to the end result, which gets us to step number 4, create a timeline. If I know what the end date is, the time in which I need or will have this goal completed by, I can start working backwards from it and create those little baby steps to get me there on time. This final tweak of my goals is really what gets the big picture, that sometimes overwhelming big picture, broken down into action steps for me, and then creates the timeline, the working timeline that I'll be focused on to complete my goals. So be realistic in this step. We know our final end date is probably 12/31, right? If we are in fact making goals for the new year. That said, if you have 10 goals written down, that's a lot of work to do. And working on each at the same time might be too much. So think about breaking your goals into quarters. At least that helps me. So quarter 1 is January, February, and March. So as of 3/31, where do you need to be to stay on track? Quarter 2 is April, May, and June. So what needs to be done by then to stay on track? In June, it's a great halfway point to look back and see how much you have accomplished and use it as a tool, reminder that you are halfway. Literally, you're already halfway to needing your list completed. Now, this past year, this was a pivotal point for me because the year kind of got away from me at the beginning. And I realized I still had one of my big major goals to work on and have done by December. So timeline, our 4th step. It is a vital step in crushing our goals. All right, last step, number 5, act. Do the work. And this last step is no less important than the 4 previous ones because without action, we have regressed back to a wish list. Not the goals that we are working on. Action, movement, effort, work, activity, something that is measurable when assessing your progress forward. I know it's a cliche. Dreams don't work unless you do. Well, same for goals, right? If we take them from our dreams and wishes, the only way we're going to get them is by doing the work. So how do we keep ourselves motivated? So that even in our low energy moments, our dips with our emotions, forget it, I don't care, any more doubts, or those self-sabotaging quirks that can sneak in when we least expect them. How do we stay on track and keep doing the work to achieve our goals? Go back and look at step number 2. That's what I do. The foundation of defining what motivates you and what inspires you is something that you can and should go back to again and again to keep your energy focused on the way. What motivates you? This is going to be your reason for doing it. What inspires you? This is going to be what creates your action, your desire to act on the motivation. All right, what about our goals for career and job? What about our witchy work wishes? Certainly they can and should be one of your buckets to think about and hopefully have a goal or 2 in. But you can also do some standalone work on your corporate or work goals. And of course, there will be a bunch of variables as this is such an individual space as your own personal goals are as well. So when brainstorming your work goals, think about things that will advance your career and or advance your happiness within it. This might include something outside of the office too, like learning a new skill, getting a degree in your field or field of study, or something that might not actually take place at your job, but will be for the greater good of the career you desire. And just like your personal goals are super important in creating the best version of you, so are your corporate goals. You have that balance and best version of you there too. Now, I mentioned in last year's goal podcast the acronym SMART, which is used a bunch when people are talking about goals. If If you're not familiar with that, it stands for S is for specific, M, measurable, A, achievable, R, relevant, and T is time sensitive. When you're working on your corporate goals, whatever form they are in, be smart about them. Don't just say, I want to be happier at work this year, right? That is way too general. It is not measurable. It does not give you specific steps to achieve the state of mind, nor does it give you a timeline to measure your success against. If you really want a separate set of corporate goals, not a bubble or subline within all of your goals, start over from the beginning with a fresh piece of paper and go through each step again with your business hat on. I'm going to start and end with the same little saying again. A dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. And a plan backed by action becomes reality. I promise if you stay consistent with these 3 things, the world is yours. Again, goal or no goal. If this is how you tackle stuff, you are going to succeed. Use the 5 ways I listed out to crush your 2024 goals. Create them, define them, break them down, add timelines, and then act. You got this. All right, remember that free giveaway I mentioned at the beginning? Well, it's time. I have a Witchy Work Wishes 2024 digital planner ready just for you. I am personally using this myself, and I would love to share a free copy with you. If you would like one, please send me a DM on Instagram, and I will zip a copy over to you. Again, in case you are not following me over there, just look for Witchy Work Wishes. Now, this free copy is available for the month of January only. I'll have a full 2025 calendar, both digital and hard copy, available in the fall of 24. All right, I'm going to grab my poem, and I will be right back. All right, this is my goals poem that I previously wrote, and it just fits perfectly into today's episode. And it goes. It's time for goals. It's time to plan. Think ahead and dream all that you can. What are your wishes? What do you want? All those desires known by your confidant. Write them down and think them through. What are the goals that mean something to you? Think of what motivates you to do more. Don't second guess. Just let your heart pour. Let your inspirations come to the page. Free them from doubt. Let them out of the cage. This is all about you and the person you'll be. These goals are your wishes. Now let them free. As you write them down, think them through. Get them organized in sections too. Compartmentalizing helps. I promise it will. I know it's a lot to get over this hill. You've made your plan and you have your goal. This passionate list speaks right to your soul. All of your wishes and all you desire are written out now so you can soar higher. And once you're flying, continue on. Make baby steps to act upon. Those little steps will get you going and put into motion all that is growing. And higher you'll soar with your goals in mind, for goals written down have a date assigned. And baby step goals, broken down into actions, become your reality with true satisfaction. It's time for goals. It's time to plan. Think ahead and dream all that you can. This is all about you and the person you'll be. These goals are your wishes. Now let them free. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy 2024. I am so very appreciative of your support and that you come back each week to my podcast. Next week, we are back with Justin, the pagan padre. And oh my goodness, guess what? Hang tight. The entire episode is about Loki, the Norse god of mischief. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week and weekend, and I'll talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.